Okay, I'm going to try to record another demo here. Basically, it's going to be pretty much what I went through in class today, but I'm going to try and do another one on my computer again to try and create a resource for you to take a look at during or after class as you're finishing this up. Okay, so I've got the grid up here on the screen, and basically the elements that you need to have that you can see here, pretty much the outline of kind of the frame or the box that you created with your direct perspective grid. You definitely want to see the horizon line, and I usually highlight that in some other color because that's one we're always trying to connect to with your triangles. And it's also the line we use to judge heights. So if it's the same color as these other blue lines, it makes it hard to pick out sometimes. And we want to make sure we include the near vanishing point because that's the point we're going to extend to in order to make sure lines are converging in the right place. So this is kind of the final grid set that you want to have. You could even have this on the measurement plane grids, the blue lines on another layer or something and put it up there. You don't need that all the time with the grid, but it's helpful to have it on there as long as you can kind of visualize the difference between that and the grid on the ground plane. Okay, so we've got our grid to start with, 10, 20, 30, 40 by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm going to pull up the plan here for a second just to take a look at it. And you can see that what we're worth looking at here is a basic grid plan, just to make this a little easier to understand how to learn to use the direct perspective. So the first thing you want to do is kind of understand what's going on. These are 6-inch curbs with planting area, and this is a water feature. This is a 6-inch curb, and it's 6-inch high and 6 inches wide. Again, it's kind of hard to measure 6 inches. I'll show you how you can do that accurately. But again, for this method, sometimes you just can make a visual judgment about that. Back here, this is a planter, a 6-inch curb raised planter. And then in the back here, there's 2 steps. Now, I kind of made these bigger, kind of between seating steps and real steps. They're 2 feet deep or wide, and they're a foot tall for each one. So basically, there's a riser on this edge, and then there's a riser on this edge. So it steps up a foot, goes over 2 feet, steps up a foot, and then we're on a +2 platform. And these 2 L-shaped lines are walls, it's kind of retaining walls that hold that up. So you can see where everything falls on the grid. Tried to make it a little easier. It's either on a 10 or it's on halfway, and we can easily figure out where that halfway is as we go through this. So I'll kind of be referring back to this plan. When you do this in class, you're going to sit this next to your drawing, look at where something is here, and then locate it on the grid. That's basically the process. So the first step is really to kind of locate everything on the ground plane. Once you get it on the ground plane, then we'll have to extend lines vertically for all these elements in order to set the heights. But it's easier, I think, to see the plan in perspective and then work those details out. So let's turn this off for a second. I'm going to pick a spot at the front here. So I'm going to start at this corner right up here and then work my way back through around the steps and back. So again, block out the major forms. Then we'll block this out. Then we'll come back in and locate the step, and then we'll locate the walls. So we want to basically get the footprints of those things and then extend the faces up that we can see. So take a look at this. I'm going to go 5 feet over, 5 feet back, 5 feet over, 10 feet back, 5 feet back to this grid, and then to the grid there, around the step, and back to the wall. That's the path I'm going to try to follow first. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. Get this layer out of my way, get a pencil. All right, so the plan, this is the front face, and my corner starts right here, 10 feet back. So I'm going to trace over this line. And again, for starters, some of this I'll just do freehand. It'll be a little bit easier, but you can use your triangle and line up with the grid to do this as well. So I'm going from the corner here, and my next stop is halfway through here. So since I'm going to draw back in through here, I think I may just use my line tool, and this is what you could use your triangle for. So where is halfway? Well, the one thing I know is if I draw a line from this corner to this corner, and I draw a line from this corner to this corner, which you can't see very well. So let's make that a little darker. Try that again. All right, from here to here, I'm just drawing the diagonals across one of my grid cells. And I know that's exactly in the center, right? So then I can take my same guideline, kind of extend it. Now this is where these blue lines come in. If I tilt this like this, it's heading closer to this blue line and away from that one. So I want to I'm going to arrange my line, and you're going to use your triangle so that it looks like it's right about halfway in between. And that creates the guide that I need. Now I know I'm going to come down to the next square, and I'll need to do the same thing. So I'm just going to put a couple more light. And again, if you're doing this on your drawing, you'd want to make those very light lines so that it's not going to interfere with your other drawing. So use a hard lead, do that really lightly. And since this almost hits right on that blue line, I'm going to just extend that across there. So those are kind of my working lines. So I'll zoom in a little bit more, go back to my pencil, and now I can trace down, it's a darker color, trace down to that 5-foot mark, and I'm going to come over. And again, I can put another diagonal through here if I want to, but I think I'm just going to kind of estimate where that halfway is. And then from here, again, I can use my line tool. And this line is going to this vanishing point, right? So I could extend that down there. And I know I'm going across this line until I hit this line, which was 5 feet down. So I'm going to draw back to there, and then along that line, oops, sorry, back to the front. So if I go back to my plan that I was showing you, and let me, so I just started, I drew this line. I drew this line, not worrying about the widths right now, this line, and I think that's all I've got so far. So I stopped right at that corner, and you can see that line there. I came across, down, back, down to the depth, and back over again to that line. So really using this grid is just a matter of looking at the plan, understanding if you were sketching it, you would just be figuring out how big you want things based on the grid. If you're following a plan like this, you just need to look at the plan and see where that's going. Okay, so now I go to the middle of the next grid. Okay, if I stop here, let's just stop here and go around the steps, and then we'll come back in and get the other pieces. So the next part, I want to come around here, and then from that corner, I go all the way back to the back wall. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Down here, and okay, so this is the next major grid line. I just go 5 feet to there. I follow that. All the way across, and then it's another 10, 20 feet back to there. And I go across the back wall till I hit the next 10-foot line. And then I'm coming forward 30 feet. 10, 20, 30. So again, I'm going 10, 20, 30. And in this case, I go over halfway. Again, this point, probably going to just estimate that visually. And put in a guideline, and then come back in, and I'm going 10 feet along that, and then 10 feet over. Okay, so let's zoom out so you can see kind of the whole picture of that, and maybe even turn the grid layer off there for a second. Okay, so you can see the basic footprint of what we were looking at on the plan. We're going around here, back up over 5 feet, 10 feet, over 5 feet, and that reconnects us to the wall. So that's that first footprint, and we used a couple diagonals to find center points, and that's the first step. Now, most of the rest of this is pretty straightforward. We can bring a line across the back of here that represents the back edge of our little water feature, which based on the plan says it goes down a foot. So we'll have to take that and sink that down below the ground plane. And then we have the steps and walls back here. So let's take a look at the plan again. And you can see that this is, again, 2 feet wide all the way around here. And it goes up, steps up a foot here and another foot here. So if we can draw this back step, then we've got all the points we need to at least get that placed in there and to get the back of the wall in, which is at the 5 foot mark. So how do we do that? Well, this is where using these measurement plane lines come in. Thought I had some other lines in here. Well, I'll put them in, no problem. Okay, so let's take our line. If we take this, we draw a vertical line from there, vertical line from there. Probably wouldn't hurt to have these on your grid also, but you can always just draw a temporary line up like I'm doing. So we've got these marks, they're straight up, they're vertical. So I know this step that comes down in this area is 2 feet across. So how do I find 2 feet? Well, the easiest way then is to come right back up to the front and to draw a line through there. And now I go 1, 2, where that crosses that line. I drop that down. And then I just take that to the vanishing point. So that's 2 feet at the front, that's 2 feet at the back. So this is the first step, that's where the second step is on the ground plane. Now, how do I know where it turns and goes this way? Well, I know, again, I can use my diagonal. I know that it's wherever that it's going to cross and turn at a 90-degree angle, so it's going to hit right there. And I just use my guidelines to extend it over to there. So if I drew over that carefully, then I have my line coming to there, and you can see if I can get the eraser small enough, I can go in there and eliminate the little and this actually goes back, stair goes back 10 feet, so this line would end right there. Okay, so you can also see as you get back into the depth of the perspective, even with zooming in here on the screen, you can see the foreshortening. So you can see the stair pretty well right here, but it's getting pretty small right there. And so again, you want to use a fine point, and I'm drawing this in, but again, we're not really going to see this line eventually because it's underneath the stairs. We have to raise those lines up, but at least that gives us the location of that. So let's zoom out a little bit and see. So again, if we pull up our plan, you can see that line coming right, that thinner line right there represents this line right here. And then it extends out to like about the midpoint of that grid, and that's where the wall comes up. So let's draw that one in there just to locate that first. So halfway, again, I could take my line and wherever that hits right there, that's where my wall stops. So it comes across, and I'll just draw a light line up vertically from there for right now. And then I know the wall, that L-shaped wall hits the back wall here, and I know it starts right here. So I'm just beginning to block out those areas and kind of see. Again, if you were doing this on your desk, you could just draw that lightly with your triangle resting on your T-square. Another good reason why you need that equipment, you can just do these really quick vertical lines straight up from there, and that's an easy way to do it. Okay, so we also need to know, let's hide the plan for a second. How do we find the height of this step and the height of this step? So I might want to mark those on this back wall because I can see that really easy. Then I can extend them out and draw lines up from the diagonal in order to mark that out. So if I take this point right here, I'm 2 feet out and I'm a foot up. So that's through the vanishing point. I come back here, and that, if I go up from my step and then go across this way, there's the first step, and then right there, going up and over to the far vanishing point. And this line doesn't really have to be in here. And based on that, if that's 2, then that's 3. And then this goes back to that vanishing point. So just so you can see it as I draw that in, I'm going to shade that, and I'll add one more line from the vanishing point. That's the edge of my step. And I know here's my front corner, so I come up until I hit that edge. And I don't really need that dark line in there. Okay, and I can't see it anymore because I erased it, but if I put this diagonal in there, where this line comes across. Okay, let's back out here a little bit so you can see that. Okay, so you can see this is the edge now, and I also know that if I bring a line up from here where the step starts on the other side, basically bring that across. And you can see how that step comes across there. And then this next one comes up to here. And it's just going to fall a little short. And it's a little hard on here with all my lines to let you see that, but you get the idea. This is coming out. That front step is going to be very foreshortened, and then that's going to come across based on that convergence. Okay, now if I shade this in a little bit, there's a lot of guidelines in there, but hopefully that will help you kind of see what's going on there. And maybe, well, I won't cover up the grid right now. But that's kind of the basic process that you're going to go through. You find these corners on the ground plane, you extend them up. This is 3 feet. It's the front corner of the wall. Again, the way you would set up this dimension, I actually would use a little piece of paper So I extend the line, put a piece of paper beside this and say that's 5 feet from there to there. So if you're breaking it down, 2, 3, 4, 5, might be a little short there. So I'm going to come up that point. And that's all you need to do. Just practice until you get those measurements. And actually that's kind of hitting at the same place, which is kind of pretty close to what it should be doing. So, and I didn't exactly find this back corner, but let's just say it's right there. It's 5 foot mark. We could find that diagonal down there and extend that up, and that's the 5 foot mark. And this is just kind of the front of the wall there. We can draw in, and then that wall extends over. Oh, I don't think it extends to there, does it? No. Okay, so that's back at this mark, so it would come across to there, I believe. Set back a little bit, and then across to there. And if we look at the plan, it goes back to that. It goes back to that midpoint in there, and then goes across, which actually would be right there. Okay, so I know it goes to the midpoint of those two. That's the back wall. I locate that where it's easier to see. It's really hard to see down underneath here. And then I just extend that across based on the far vanishing points. And probably here you won't even really see the top of it because it's so foreshortened, it's only a foot distance. And again, this method is intended to be kind of quick and easy, and so don't kill yourself trying to find every little detail in there. It's going to be too hard to do. Okay, so if I zoom out of there a little bit, you can start seeing what's going on. Okay, I'll turn my grid back on there so you can see it on the grid. So that's the basic process. I'm not going to go through. I think I've figured out most of the most difficult pieces, at least demonstrated that. This really back corner with the stairs is the most complicated. And that might show a little, a little thickness in there or something for the top of that. Locating the footprint for these is pretty straightforward. And then again, if you have a 6-inch curb, if you figure out what 5 feet is between there and there, if that's a foot, that's 6 inches, then you just put that 6-inch mark, and then you can extend using your vanishing point, extend that along, and it will get, proportionally bigger as it moves toward the front. If this goes down a foot, you figure out what a foot is. This is 5 feet between there and there. What's a foot? And then it might extend down actually below, so it probably goes down to the point where you can't really even see it. I think that actually has another curve that goes across, so that will come across there. And you'd take this line out of here because you wouldn't really be able to see it. That would be a line going down. Probably be able to see the thickness of the curve along the side there, and shade that in a bit so you can tell what's going on. Okay, same process. Locate it on the ground plane. Use your near vanishing point wherever it's appropriate, and a triangle, just extend it to that. And again, all these guidelines, I'm using the line tool in Photoshop, so it does get a little confusing, but it will be a little confusing on your drawing. So draw these very lightly, very thinly. You just want to put them down enough so you can see what you're doing, and then you can draw a little darker lines when you locate what's in there. And again, back here, this would have I'd measure up 2 feet from the back corner. I'm looking at this line right here all the way through. and then there would be a line on the back wall somewhere in there that represents the 2-foot mark going across there. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I'll go over that in class today, and hopefully by taking a look at this later on, it will make some sense. So the exercise, this is like your working version. You're going to have a piece of trace paper with all these lines on it, light, dark, where you're going to finally outline all these pieces. And so don't worry if you have an extra line here or there. If you have eraser marks, that's okay. This is the construction version. And then once you get it done, you can overlay this, trace it over neatly so that you won't have any lines except the boundaries of the courtyard. You can draw these back walls in at 10 feet tall, just to give us a little context, even though we don't know what that is. You know, if you want to put a door in the center there or something, you can draw a door in there. And of course, we want to add some people in there. Having fun drawing perspectives, and to give a scale. So you put people at a couple different places. If you want to put someone up here, remember that that's already 2 feet off the full ground. So this from anywhere from here to here is 3 feet. So if that's 3 feet, that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that person is going to be standing up there. So their head is not going to be lined up with the horizon line because they're on a platform that's 2 feet higher than the other one. Okay, I hope that's helpful. I'll post it on YouTube and you can catch it there. Thanks a lot.